Now, while new HIV infections in sub-Saharan Africa reduced by 56%, and with the largest anti-retroviral rollout program in the world, South Africa's contributed to 54% decline in HIV-related deaths. That's since 2010. However, this progress risks being reversed, with sudden drastic cuts from a number of donors sending shockwaves through global health. The global HIV response faces a major funding crisis, worsened by human rights and humanitarian issues. Sudden US funding cuts and declining donor support have disrupted HIV programs worldwide. PEPFAR's $4.3 billion commitment to over 50 countries for 2025 was stopped as the US reviews its foreign aid strategy. South Africa is reassessing its approach, while conflicts in places like South Sudan affect service access. Emeritus Professor of Pediatrics and Child Health at Stellenbosch University, Professor Mark Cotton, joins us now to talk about this. A very good evening to you. Thank you for your time, Professor Cotton. As we look to some of these concerns, the change in the rate of new HIV infections from 2010 to 2019 has almost halved. Where does most of the decline emanate from?
I think it comes from a lot of places. In my field, the amount of vertical transmission to babies has dramatically declined, and that is the most amazing statistic. So from round about maybe 30 to 40,000 babies a year, it's gone down to, I think, 1,000 or 2,000, which is still too much. Because people are taking the anti-retrovirals, they are, and especially when they are suppressed, they are not transmitting HIV when they have sexual relations with other people. And that's probably one of the important ways. Also, the use of condoms, the voluntary male circumcision program, the availability of pre-exposure prophylaxis especially to women. These are all very, very effective ways of preventing transmission.
What are these new improvements and developments, halving of HIV incidence rates, represent in South Africa's HIV response?
I couldn't quite hear that. I don't know.
So in terms of what this overall tally represents, what does it signal when it comes to South Africa's HIV response?
Yeah, so essentially South Africa's HIV response is pretty good. And as you've said previously, there is a threat with the withdrawal of funding for service and, of course, funding for research. On the one hand is the service delivery, monitoring what's happening, entering the data properly and understanding it, forecasting, and some of that is threatened. Also, the PrEP, or the pre-exposure prophylaxis for young women, is threatened. And then the other point is through research. How do you use your tools better, and are there better tools than you've got that you can introduce into service? And that's also very, very drastically threatened.
Are there better tools? I mean, as you look to some of the options and try and find a way forward so that all this work is not reversed.
Yes. Well, the better tools are developing. The one excellent example is the cabotegravir. The data was released last year through research, a lot of which was actually in South Africa with Professor Linda Gale Becker. And that was a phenomenal study, but it was successful. So lenacapavir should be introduced into service within a year or two, which is quite phenomenal. So there's constant improving of what you've got, and there are constantly new developments that need to be tested through research and then implemented in service delivery. And once they're implemented, you need the correct data capture to work out if it's really happening the way it should happen, or are there unanticipated problems. It's always checking and balancing and improving. It's the nature of what we do, in fact, both in service delivery and in research.
And with all these developments taking place, what role should government be playing, or what role can government play in filling the gaps left by the donors?
Yes, well, clearly funding is needed. You know, the gaps in service delivery should be filled, and the government already puts a lot of resources into HIV, but it needs to put much more. And then from the research point of view, these amazing research groups that have been established in South Africa and really are, if not world leaders, contributing at least to changes in globally, bringing all these advances both to South Africa and to the rest of the world. You know, I'd also like to tell you about my own area that I'm working in, which is curing HIV. And actually, we are making progress, but this progress will be threatened. And imagine if we developed interventions through research that could work for taking some people, maybe fairly large numbers of people eventually, off antiretrovirals using interventions that actually work. But that won't be possible unless the research moves forward. At the moment, it's in a very preliminary but very exciting phase, and we are desperate that this work continue.
Yeah. Thanks for speaking to us. Thank you so much for your time. Emeritus Professor of Pediatrics and Child Health at Stellenbosch University, Professor Mark Cotton there, talking to us about the bigger impact of US donors cutting aid when it comes to HIV and development in that space.